Thanks for coming with me.
I am puzzled as to why you would want to visit the Christian church after all the crap you and Carrie got slammed with at school last year.
Jason invited us. Not to convert us to Christianity, but at least if we go visit his church occasionally, some of the people in town might not be so hostile to us. Jason did attend several of our UU fellowship services, so this is returning the favor.
Thanks for coming, though I am surprised to see you. Especially you, James. I was told you didn't even like UU services, let alone those of any other religion.
Well, since Father died, I guess I've been a little more receptive to spiritual ideas. But don't get used to it.
Debbie and James, this is a pleasant surprise. Is your mother here too? No, Miss Jenkins. She is with her friends doing the usual UU service today. We came here on our own to learn what we can about your religion. That is, if we are welcome. Of course you are.
Just know that if you try to cram anything down our throats like you tried to do to my sister and Carrie at school last year, we will run faster than a tornado.
I understand. My uncle was removed as principal of the school even though your lawsuit was dropped. He was found to have embezzled school funds after an audit was done by the state school board. He is no longer welcome at our church. Our service starts in a few minutes. Follow me. Were you raised a Baptist? Yes, my parents and grandparents were all Protestants before me. We were all so narrow-minded that even Catholicism was alien to us, let alone anything actually outside Christianity. So that explains your extreme hostility to me and Carrie. I thought you were just being mean. When you have been told all your life that there is only one true path, you have it, and you are expected to spread its teachings to others. You get people like me a year ago. The thing is, I assumed your mother had indoctrinated you to be atheist, just as I had been taught from babyhood to be Christian. No, that's not how we operate. I was taught to assume nothing and question everything. We don't assume there is no God from the start. It is the conclusion one reaches after looking for evidence that a religion is true, and finding none. The pastor is about to begin his sermon.
Welcome, everyone. Take your Bibles and open them to Luke chapter 10 verses 17 through 20. The 72 returned with joy, saying, Lord, even the demons are subject to us in your name. And he, Jesus, said to them, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Behold, I have given you authority to tread on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall hurt you. Nevertheless, do not rejoice in this, that the spirits are subject to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven. Think about that. 2,000 years ago, Jesus had only 72 followers, but today he has nearly 2 billion. Christianity is the most popular religion in the world, and has been for many centuries. Through the power of God, we have brought down Nazism in World War II, and then communism in the 1990s. And in time, we will certainly defeat Islamic terrorism too. Through faith alone we must prevail today, just as Jesus and his early followers did. You look like someone is stomping all over your feet.
All this bashing of other religions and ideologies sounds, well, bigoted. It is nothing like a UU service. We talk of serving others and opposing things that hurt people, not seeking to hurt people.
So let me get this straight. He gives a short quote from the Bible and then does a sermon based on that quote. That seems impractical. And he talks about Satan, demons, and spirits as if we already know they exist. That's right. It has always been that way for as long as I have been attending church. No further comment. How do you like my new style, Carrie? I was actually hoping you wouldn't ask. It almost makes you seem like a different person. I can't believe you and James actually visited the Baptist church. You are not thinking of converting, are you? No, of course not. I would only do that if I was shown proof that Christianity was true. But at least Miss Jenkins and I respect each other now, and that's a huge change.
Good morning, class. Today, we will be focusing on the American Revolution. Open your history books to page 37 and we will begin. The American colonists were increasingly frustrated with the British king and parliament for their approving taxes on the colonists without their being represented in parliament. This eventually caused them to revolt.
You know what's so damn funny about that? What? The white colonists were willing to fight for their own freedom, but they didn't give a damn about freeing the black slaves among them. It wasn't until the Civil War nearly a century later that slavery ended. You are right. I guess hypocrisy is its own punishment. If American slavery had ended in 1776, there would have been no Civil War.
Girls, if you don't stop chatting, I will send one or both of you to the principal's office.
Mr. Bentley, we were actually discussing the very subject of the class.
Debbie Smith, I am still the teacher here, and until I finish the lecture, no one else speaks.
Right, and that is how a society slowly becomes fascist. Still wish you were being homeschooled, Carrie?
That's it. Both of you, get out.
So you are the new principal. I wish we were meeting under better circumstances.
Mr. Bentley says you were being disruptive in class.
I guess that depends on how you define disruptive, sir.
Would you care to explain that, Miss Sims? Or shall I just assume you were being sarcastic?
Debbie and I were objecting to the white-centered views of the American Revolution.
Aren't you white?
Yes, but I am being raised by a black mother. She told me that while the white colonists were willing to fight for their own freedom in the 1770s, they cared nothing for the black slaves among them. The American Revolution did nothing for them. Clearly, unless and until all people are willing to fight for the freedom of all other people, the concept of freedom is not valid.
Impressive. Most people your age are not nearly so thoughtful. I have an idea. Technically, this is supposed to be your punishment for your behavior in class today, but I really think you might enjoy this. I want you to write a 1,000-word essay detailing your political beliefs. It will be due in 2 weeks. If you do this, you will risk no detention and your record will be wiped clean.
Are there any specific rules for this essay? Are Carrie and I supposed to write 500 words each?
You may be allowed to quote from other sources, as long as you cite them properly, but at least 80% of your words must be your own.
What do you think, Carrie? I know it might be easier to just take the detention, but this is an opportunity to take a real stand for our values. I agree, Debbie. Mr. Hernandez, we will begin working on the essay this Friday.
Then you are dismissed. And please remember, there is a time and a place for everything. Even the most hardcore revolutionaries should understand the value of respecting others.
So what are you looking up? I'm reading entries in Wikipedia, various blogs, and videos in YouTube dealing with history, politics, and ethical matters. Some religious references thrown in too. When is Debbie coming over? She's not. She offered to help, but I was really the one that got us in trouble, so I said I would do most of the work. As you wish. When I was your age, we didn't have the internet to get information so quickly. I had to go to the public or school libraries to get information for book reports. You girls are so lucky to have computers like this. Aha! Here is an entry from the blog made by Dale Husband. Newton's Laws of Politics, sort of. Conservatives often complain that poor and minority peoples are never satisfied, despite the gains supposedly made for them over the past 2 centuries. So they assume that their opponents are just being greedy and bigoted against whites and the rich. But there is another way of seeing what has happened and what can be done to stop the problems. Consider Newton's third law of motion, which states, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. This would explain why, after slavery was abolished, the lives of blacks that had been enslaved did not improve much, because Jim Crow laws passed in the southern states where slavery had been an institution kept blacks in an inferior social and economic status. Because whites had always been richer, they were able to influence governments and use companies they ran to keep themselves in total control. Later, blacks rebelled against the Jim Crow laws and the racial segregation they were made to enforce, and got most of them struck down by the U.S. Supreme Court. Southern whites, and some in the northern states too, responded in several ways. Starting in the 1970s, the federal government, along with most state governments, began issuing very harsh sentences for people convicted of possessing, selling and using illegal drugs. As a result, the prison populations exploded across the nation. Since poor and minority people often sold drugs to try to raise their depressed economic status, they often found themselves targeted for their crimes. Even worse, drug dealing was classed as a felony, and anyone convicted of a felony would not be allowed to vote, even after being released from prison. Whites began creating and sending their children to private schools, often associated with religious institutions that preached conservative moral, political and economic values, instead of public schools that were largely populated by poor and minority students. The public schools were also often underfunded by governments elected by ignorant and selfish white people who wanted low taxes and pro-business policies that favored those who were already rich. An entire political movement, known as the religious right, began to infiltrate and corrupt the Republican Party in the late 1970s for the purpose of tearing down the concept of church-state separation and making Christianity the dominant religion in society instead of merely the most popular one as it always had been. They wanted to discriminate against and even persecute those who were non-Christians, including atheists, gays, lesbians, and others who did not follow biblical values. Oddly enough, the strongest Christian communities were in the Bible Belt, that part of the USA that was also known for keeping slaves in the 19th century and then oppressing blacks still more in the century following the abolition of slavery. After the religious right died out in the 1990s, it was resurrected as the Tea Party of today. The election of Barack Obama, the first black man to gain the U.S. presidency, in 2008 infuriated white conservatives who then used the new Tea Party to energize and elect extremists among Republicans, including a-holes like Senator Ted Cruz, who represents my own home state of Texas, much to my embarrassment. Republicans took control of both houses of Congress in 2010 and also elected even more of them to Congress in 2014. In the 2010s, many Republican-dominated states passed voter ID laws to require voters to produce a picture ID in addition to their voter registration cards. The sponsors of these laws claimed they were made to prevent vote fraud, despite the lack of evidence that vote fraud was ever a problem anywhere. But in fact, most states also charged citizens money for their IDs, meaning that requiring IDs to vote was imposing a de facto poll tax, something already outlawed by the 24th Amendment because poll taxes discriminate against the poor and make voting a privilege instead of a right. There is another one of Newton's laws of motion that seems to explain why the libertarian concepts of limited government and the rule of law need to be thrown out of our politics in order to create a better society for the poor and minorities. It is the first law: an object at rest stays at rest and an object in motion stays in motion with the same speed and in the same direction unless acted upon by an unbalanced force. It took a white-dominated free market to establish slavery in the American colonies, and it took government force during and after the Civil War to end it. It also took more government force to fight back against discrimination against minorities in the mid-20th century. And that government force in both cases was the result of pressure from blacks and enlightened whites who had enough of the arrogance of the conservatives in their times. But in each case, we later allowed conservatives to take back control, mistakenly thinking we had done enough and that this time, society would improve itself on its own. But it never does and it never will. Only when conservatism as a force in American politics is completely disabled in a second American Revolution and/or a second American Civil War will the abuses and hypocrisies of conservatives across America finally be brought down for good. Unlike mindless matter, which obeys Newton's laws of motion blindly, we as a people should have the intelligence and compassion to end the cycle of abuse, reform and stagnation and change society completely. We just need the courage and foresight to bring it about. Is he actually calling for Republicans to be exterminated or mass imprisoned? I wonder. That's not going to happen, so what can really be done? I guess Nothing. Carrie, what have you done? Jessica, come help. What happened? Mother Jessica, where am I? You are at the hospital. Lucy found you lying in a pool of blood after you had slit your wrists. You were rushed to the ER and given a blood transfusion to save your life. Right, the thing Jehovah's Witnesses aren't allowed to accept. I'm so thankful the doctors could save you, but why would you attempt suicide? I'm sorry. The more research I did on the world, its history, its current status and what could happen in the future, the more convinced I became that the world is going to hell. And it is all the fault of white people like us. I felt guilty for just existing. And if we can't save the world and are doomed to ruin it and ourselves, why go on living? Carrie, come here. Yes, white people have done a lot of horrible things and they will continue to do horrible things as long as we have the ability to do evil. But you know what? The simple fact you recognize the evil means you can resist it and maybe even defeat it someday. But that will never happen if you surrender to the evil. If you had died last night, evil would have won for sure. Carrie, Lucy and I love you so much that we would die to save you. Your life is more precious than all the gold in Fort Knox 1,000,000 times over. It is your connection to me, Lucy, Debbie, and others that makes you special. That makes you loved. That makes your life have meaning. Throwing it away doesn't just end your own pain, it actually spreads that pain to all the ones that know and love you. I just didn't see it that way. Can you forgive me? Carrie, there's nothing to forgive. You are a survivor, and that is something to be proud of.
Hello, Mrs. Sims. Carrie, it appears you are already recovering, physically, at least. Your vital signs are stable, so I will have you released to go home in a few hours. But I strongly urge you to get counseling.
Yes, doctor. I'm sorry for all the trouble I caused. How do you feel, Carrie? Like an idiot. The thought of you possibly attending my funeral and then missing me afterwards shatters my heart. I can't tell you how sorry I truly am. My mother told me something interesting on the way here. She said, suicide is not an act of weakness, it is a sign that the victim has tried to be strong on her own for too long. What does that mean? You insisted on handling the burden of that report on our political beliefs alone. And being left alone made you depressed and hopeless. If I had been there, I would have helped you, not just with the report, but with you sharing your feelings and talking them out. I can't imagine how I would have reacted if I found Debbie close to death like that. It seems I should return the favor now that you did for me after Rich was killed. You already did enough by bringing Debbie here. Mother Lucy. I don't know how you can even look at me after what I did. And what I am. I was feeling that you must hate me for being white, and that you'd be better off without me.
No, Carrie, I would never hate you for being white. You are not to blame for anything your ancestors did to my ancestors. When you were born, a nurse put you in my arms after Jessica held you for a couple of minutes. And I didn't see a white baby. I saw my beautiful daughter. And you are my beautiful daughter still. And forever.
Thank you, Mother Lucy. Let's go home. As you requested, here is the report on my and Carrie's political beliefs. It is actually about 1,200 words long.
Thank you. This work is extremely well done, almost like I would see at college level. But why isn't Carrie here? What happened to her?
Carrie is recovering from some trauma. I'm not at liberty to discuss it with outsiders. The family wishes to keep it private. She has not been in school this week at all. so I've had to do most of the work on this paper.
I see. I hope she gets better soon. I will keep my word and accept this paper in lieu of detention, and also wipe the records of both you and Carrie Sims clean.
Thank you. I will inform Carrie later.
You are welcome. And Miss Smith, don't cause trouble for your teachers again. You may have strong principles, but you should be tolerant and respectful of those you disagree with in order to get along in a diverse society. Sometimes, it is better to keep your opinions to yourself.
I will keep that in mind, sir. Goodbye. Hello, Mrs. Sims. May I speak to Carrie? Of course. She is expecting you, but she just underwent a makeover. I hope you like the new version of her. So it is true. You have changed.
Yes. Since you did, I thought I would too. But you never really explained why you changed.
I'd been wearing the same hairstyle with pigtails and pink coloration since I was 6 years old. One day I looked at myself in the mirror and thought, I am approaching adulthood, so why do I still look like a little girl? I was thinking that people didn't respect me because I seemed too childish.
Well, I changed simply because I was tired of my old look, which was made to imitate a punk rocker who called herself Lizzie Boarded Up. I like this more unique version of me now.
As long as we are both happy with ourselves, that's what matters. So how did things go at the therapy session yesterday?
I am slowly making progress working out my self-esteem issues. One thing my therapist suggested was that I do something creative, like art or music. After the session was over, Mother Lucy and I stopped at a hobby shop and we bought a canvas and some paints. I will try my hand at painting.
Speaking of creative arts, Mr. Hernandez said he was impressed with our paper and accepted it. We are both off the hook as far as detention is concerned.
Good, I am just glad that is over. But no matter what else happens, I will always have these scars on my wrists as a reminder of how I could have lost everything precious to me. I have vowed never to let that happen again. From now on, if I feel like I am falling into the abyss, I will always ask for help.
And if you ask me for help, I will do my best to come and care for you. That's what friends are for, Carrie. We just got a letter today. I will open it now and read it.
Go ahead.
How dare that pastor write us such crap? I've got some phone calls to make. How did he even find out about Carrie's suicide attempt? Carla, just as things seemed to be fine between us, now I am furious with you again. Why? What's wrong? Your moronic pastor sent us a 5-page letter with a dozen Bible quotes. Basically, he claimed that if Carrie had been a Christian, she might not have attempted suicide. So why be angry at me about it? I didn't say anything to my pastor about Carrie. Well, if you didn't, who the hell did? I only told you about it so that you could know why Carrie needed to be sent English lessons from you to do at home for a couple of weeks. Jessica, I do not betray confidences. Someone else must have told Brother Dave about Carrie. Besides myself and Lucy, the only ones who knew what happened were you, Sandy, Debbie and Dr. Drake, the one who treated Carrie at the hospital. Dr. Drake does attend my church. It must have been him. Do you have his personal phone number? I do. Dr. Drake, you have some explaining to do.
About what, Mrs. Sims?
Did you talk to Brother Dave about Carrie last week?
Yes, I made a prayer request to him. He asked why and I mentioned your daughter's suicide attempt.
That was a serious betrayal of our trust. First of all, Carrie is not even a member of your and Brother Dave's church. Second of all, as an atheist, I have no belief in the usefulness of prayer. And most of all, it should have been me or Lucy talking to Brother Dave about such an issue. Do you want me to show you the highly offensive letter he sent to us?
He did what? I was not expecting him to do that. Feel free to destroy the letter if you do deem it so inappropriate. And you have my profound apologies.
I'm not about to show Carrie this letter. I will have it shredded. Lucy, do you have the letter we got from the Baptist minister?
No, I thought you said you were going to shred it.
I was, but left it on the kitchen table. Now it's gone. If you didn't take it,
Then Carrie must have gotten it.
Carrie, did you?
Yes, Mother Jessica, I saw that damned letter we got today. And I am already doing something about it.
What are you doing?
I used the built-in scanner of your copying machine to make images of all the letter's contents, and I am about to post those images, along with a response to the letter itself, on my Facebook, Instagram, and Tumblr accounts.
Are you sure you want to do that? You could stir up a hornet's nest of controversy. Besides, I never intended for you to see that letter. I wanted to protect you from more emotional trauma, but this act could expose you to a lot of it soon.
Mother Jessica, what happened to me was supposed to be kept private, but someone found out about it that was never supposed to, someone who clearly does not know us at all, yet he had the arrogance to tell us how to solve my problems with his idiotic religion. Why the hell should the letter he sent us be kept private? He sent it, he should be made to own it before the public.
I see your point. Go ahead and press send on that post.
How could Brother Dave had sent such a letter? That's so profoundly disrespectful. It would be like a Muslim or Buddhist sending him a letter telling him to stop being Christian. Not even the atheists of the UU Fellowship ever said that to me.
Why the damned asshole? I will never visit his church again.
As a former Christian, I am actually used to seeing crap like that. And that's sad. Someone needs to call out that arrogant pastor on his bullshit. I will make a new blog entry all about this. Hello. May I speak to Mrs. Sims?
This is Jessica Sims. You must be Dale's husband.
Correct. I was calling to ask if I had your permission to post a blog entry about the letter you, Lucy, and Carrie got from the pastor.
One moment.
Mr. Husband, I appreciate your being so courteous in asking us for permission to blog about what happened, but that wasn't necessary. The letter and my suicide attempt are now already public, so you may do as you wish. Let's have the whole world know what a douchebag that pastor is.
Mrs. Sims, I am the Reverend Dave Owen.
The one who sent us that letter telling my daughter she nearly sent herself to hell. What do you want?
Your daughter and Dale's husband posted about the letter, and now I am getting tons of angry messages about it.
Right, and you deserve every single one of them. You greatly overstepped when you sent us that garbage. And don't you ever write to us or call us again.